Good morning, Christ Church, and welcome to a musical offering for this fifth Sunday of Easter. Today we hear in the Gospel of St. John these words, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you?" And later in the passage, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." These words of reassurance are of particular significance as we reflect on the ever-increasing COVID numbers, suggesting that at least within the United States, there is much work ahead of us as we work to address the uncertainty, the anxiety, and serious illness presented by the pandemic. I invite your participation through listening, singing, and reflecting upon the music that we share today. Today, our first hymn is hymn number 432, "O Praise Ye the Lord." Last Sunday, when we had our virtual time together and I was introducing our first hymn, I made reference to the rich heritage of singing that Anglicans around the world have inherited. Indeed, it is widely acknowledged that a distinctive and indeed a unique feature of Christian worship is the centuries-old tradition and practice of singing together as we gather to offer praise, devotion, and gratitude for God's many mercies and gifts to us. During this period of isolation and separation, it has been impossible for us to do that. Even more distressing is the realization that, according to some who are studying the COVID-19 virus and its transmission, it is likely that many acts of worship, including corporate recitation, preaching, and singing together in groups, as well as involuntary acts like coughing and sneezing, can contribute to the transmission of the virus. For many Christians, particularly musicians and clergy, the concept of corporate worship without the possibility of singing together seems almost unthinkable and is a source of great sadness and grief. However that may be, and whatever best practices may ensue, for now we are left to sing God's praises within the confines of our dwellings, either alone or with those with whom we live. As I said, our first hymn this morning is hymn number 432. This is one of the great and loved hymns sung by Episcopalians everywhere. This is true because the text is paired with a stunning and very popular tune by Charles Hubert Hastings Parry. Parry, as we know, was a prime mover in the renaissance of English church music during the late 19th century and into the early years of the 20th century. Many of us know Parry's work primarily because of the tune "Jerusalem" that he composed for the famous William Blake poem. Others of us revel in the tune "Repton" that he composed for the text "Dear Lord and Father of Mankind." And of course, we know Parry for his famous coronation anthem, "I Was Glad," composed for the coronation of King Edward VII in 1902. Also last week on Good Shepherd Sunday, we encountered the English hymn writer Henry Williams Baker in his paraphrase of Psalm 23 in the hymn that we sang last week, "The King of Love My Shepherd Is." And today we sing another of Baker's psalm paraphrases, this time a paraphrase of Psalms 148 and 150, sung to Parry's music. Please join now in singing heartily and joyfully stanzas 1 and 3 of hymn 432, "O Praise Ye the Lord." This morning for our solo music, I've chosen a well-known piece by George Frederick Handel. It's simply called Largo. This rather solemn and quiet music was composed by Handel in 1738 for his opera Xerxes. The opera was an absolute failure and closed after only 5 performances. However, more than 100 years later, this particular music was resurrected and became quite popular. In its original form, the music accompanied a text which has the main character of the opera expressing admiration for the shade provided by a tree. However, over the years, this gracious and solemn music has been arranged for all sorts of instruments and voices. My particular association with this music stems from my high school days when, as a student at the Summer Music Festival on Lake Chautauqua in southwestern New York, I sang as a volunteer in the Chautauqua Choir. On Sunday evenings during the Chautauqua summer season, there was a weekly gathering in the great amphitheater known as the Sacred Song Service. These occasions featured congregational hymn singing, readings from scripture, and anthems sung by the choir. For decades, each of these Sunday evening services concluded with the music of Handel's Largo, played by the Chautauqua organist, and following which the assembly dispersed from the amphitheater in silence and into the summer evening. I'm happy to offer this morning Handel's Largo, played, of course, today on the piano. The second hymn this morning is hymn 204, Now the Green Blade Riseth, and eventually we'll sing all 4 stanzas of this. Sometimes within the church, we express some frustration and dismay that many of our sisters and brothers, while professing allegiance and faith to our common faith tradition, attend worship only infrequently. The phrase Christmas and Easter Christians has sometimes been used to describe this reality of modern life. Well, the hymn that we are about to sing has its roots in both of these 2 high festivals of the liturgical year, Christmas and Easter. The music with which these words are paired is originally a French melody known as a Noel, and has been associated since medieval times with a text that celebrates Christmas. Indeed, the name of the tune is Noël Nouvelet, which in translation means New Christmas. While the origins of the tune are at best obscure, most scholars agree that it originated in the 15th century and was from the beginning associated with a text celebrating the birth of Christ. Translated, that text says, "Let's sing Christmas here. Let's sing Christmas for the new King." However, the words we shall sing today have nothing to do with Christmas or the birth of Jesus. Rather, they provide a poetic retelling of the Easter story. The text, written around 1928 by an Anglican priest, theologian, and poet, John MacLeod Campbell Crum, who served as a canon of Canterbury Cathedral. The text is rich in its biblical imagery found in the Gospel of St. John and in St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Along with this congenial tune, one is provided with a poignant reflection on the resurrection miracle. I invite you now to sing all the stanzas of hymn 204, Now the Green Blade Riseth. finally, has become our custom, we continue to conclude today's musical offering with the simple song which we sometimes sing at Christ Church at the conclusion of communion. This lovely communal musical blessing, "Peace I Leave with You," comes to us from the monks of the Weston Priory in Vermont and offers us the music and words from a former Benedictine monk and retreat leader, Gregory Norvut. Let's sing now, "Peace I Leave with You."